morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Smith, if you can orient your device on its side, that'll give us a better, there you, perfect. Awesome.
Morning.
Mayor Sladek. Good morning.
I did not know that tipping an iPhone or any kind of phone would make it go horizontal. I learned something new today.
And you thought you only come here for MetroPlan business, right?
Tech advice.
Learn all kinds of things here, don't we?
Good morning.
Dale, are you still around?
I know. And Virginia, you've already talked to Maria. I am past tense as a mayor in about a month or so. 2 months.
Has your successor been selected?
Yeah, only because I couldn't, by charter, I could not run again. Yeah, a guy named John Lowndes Jr., smart guy, nice guy. All to distinguish him from me. And so, yeah, John will be coming on. He served on our council for 6 years.
Okay, Mayor McDonald, at this time, it looks like we are streaming live on YouTube. And so you are prepared to launch whenever you are ready, sir.
Okay, very good. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the virtual MetroPlan Orlando MAC meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Dale McDonald, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. We also have a team of folks working to ensure this meeting runs smoothly, in spite of me. Today's meeting was advertised on MetroPlan Orlando's website and social media, as well as through targeted emails. Florida's Sunshine Law requires a quorum to be physically present in a room for a government meeting. Now, Governor DeSantis suspended this requirement in an executive order allowing government boards to conduct business using virtual meetings. This order expired October 31st, so this meeting is being held in a workshop format. Now, the staff will further explain what this means in just a moment. Is Keith here for the Pledge of Allegiance, Virginia?
He is. He has joined us, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Keith, if you would, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance now, and Vice Chairman Keith Trace will lead us in the pledge. Everyone else, please remain on mute.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. We are very fortunate. Okay. Now, today's meeting, we'll keep our microphones muted unless you've been recognized to speak. And we'll use the raise hands feature to participate in discussion. There are 2 public comments periods in this meeting, and members of the public who want to speak will use the raise hands feature on the Zoom screen. If attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you're called, your microphone will be temporarily unmuted by staff and will ask you to state your name and contact information for the record. Now, we also accepted comments via email and phone messages before the meeting. The guidelines for public comments are posted at metroplanorlando.org/virtual meetings. Now, public comments received before the meeting will be read by the staff at the conclusion of the meeting. We want this and all future online meetings to be accessible to all. Participants may join by computer, tablet, or phone. If you need accommodations to participate in the future, please contact MetroPlan Orlando. Any additional comments that anyone would like to make? Or I don't have any right now, except I hope everybody's warm and toasty. And I'm working my way toward that. Otherwise, I'd like to recognize Miss Virginia of the MetroPlan Orlando staff for an agenda review.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members and all of those who are joining online. I'd like to thank you all for working with us as we conduct these virtual meetings. We appreciate your patience and understanding. Based on direction from the MetroPlan Orlando Board at their December meeting, this meeting is being held as a virtual workshop, in which action items will be reviewed and discussed, but no formal action will be taken. The board's actions on these items will be ratified at a future in-person MAC meeting. Again, we thank you for your flexibility during this time. As the chairman mentioned, we'll be using the raised hands feature to recognize committee members during the meeting and to call on members from the public during the public comment time. If you've joined us using the phone only without the video screen, please use *6 to mute and unmute your line, and please use *9 to raise your virtual hand so that one of the meeting hosts can see that you wish to be recognized. You'll see that there's a chat feature on your toolbar. This communicates with all panelists in this meeting, which includes the committee members, staff, and presenters. Please only use this if you're having technical difficulties or you need assistance. A full record of the chat comments will be included with the public record for this meeting. Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to recognize that you'll hear a new name that's not so new as we conduct the roll call this morning. Commissioner Saul Ramos has been appointed to the Municipal Advisory Committee.
Yes, Saul.
Oakland, so he's joining us today. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my announcements at this portion of the meeting, and we're prepared to move forward with the agenda as it's printed. Now, with your permission, I'd like to call on Ms. Mary Ann Horn to conduct a roll call.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask all of the committee members to go ahead and unmute yourselves and be ready to answer when your name is called, present or here, so that we know that you are here. And then you can go back on mute after that. And so, Mayor Eddie Cole, Mayor John Dowlis, Mayor Richard Drummond, Commissioner Richard Firstner, Mayor Nicholas Foraker.
Good morning, present.
Mayor David Henson.
I'm here.
Mayor Charles Lacey.
Here.
Mayor Steve Leary.
Randy Knight's here in his stead.
Thank you. Mayor Dale McDonald.
Here.
Commissioner Saul Ramos.
Present.
Commissioner Jordan Smith.
Here.
Mayor Jim O'Brien. Mayor Megan Sladek.
Here.
Councilmember Keith Trace.
Here.
Thank you very much. That completes the roll call, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we will now hear public comments on what we normally call action items. But in this format, we have our items for review and or discussion. Do we have people who want to speak to any of these items? And if so, please use the raise hands functions on your screen or press *9 on your phone keypad. When we call your name, the host will unmute your microphone. You will see a button pop up that says the host wants to unmute you. Accept that prompt to activate your microphone. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record. Now, please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. Are there any comments at this time?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for comments.
Well, isn't that just about a shame? Okay. Any written comments that were submitted prior to the meeting?
We did not receive any written comments prior to the meeting.
Okay, a double blessing. How about, okay, let's hear next from our agency partners, FDOT and Florida's Turnpike. They're making presentations later on in the agenda. So if you would rather defer your comments until then, that's perfectly fine. Ms. Henson, you're up first.
Good morning, Mayor McDonald, Chairman, and MAC committee members. I don't have major announcements this morning. The one thing I would like to request your input on is the updated construction reports that have been revamped. They are an attempt to be more user-friendly. So I'd like the committee to take a look at them. And if there's any feedback that you can provide to us, we'd be more than happy to be able to do that. At one of the subcommittee meetings this month, we were asked to provide a additional comment to the in addition to the construction reports, to make a list of completed projects in the area that would be useful for committees as well. So that's something that we're going to, the department will be working towards, is to submit a list of completed items, completed projects in our area. Other than that, this morning, I do not have any comments.
All right, very good. Thanks, Kenya. Now the Florida Turnpike Enterprise, Mr. Seosi.
Good morning, committee members. The Turnpike will be holding a public hearing on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021, for project 438547-1, which is the Pdna Study on the Florida's Turnpike at the Beachline Expressway, also known as the Orlando South Ultimate Interchange. The meeting will begin at 5:30 p.m. with a formal presentation at 6 p.m. There will be 3 options to participate in the hearing. First is the in-person option at the Florida Hotel and Conference Center at the Florida Mall, 1500 Sand Lake Road, Orlando, Florida, 32809. The second will be the virtual online option, which you can register for at the www.floridasturnpike.com/orlandosouth.html. And finally, there will be the telephone/listen only option, which can be accessed after registering online. Also, draft project documents can be reviewed in person at the Universal Orlando Foundation Library or virtually at the website aforementioned, www.floridasturnpike.com/orlandosouth.html. And that concludes my comments.
I like how you worked aforementioned in there. Mr. Miles O'Keefe is here today for Lynx. Miles, you want to share some stuff with us?
Certainly, it'd be my pleasure. A handful of things to share. So one item that we brought up in the past was we've been working towards the construction of a new transfer center in the Pine Hills community, basically across the street from Evans High School. So we've completed 100% of the design on that work now and looking to go to construction later this year. A ridership update, not much of an update, but pretty much since September 1st, when we reinstated fares after having done away with them to increase the distancing on our buses, we've been holding steady at about 50% ridership. So doing better than most places around the country, but also not seeing any improvement as time has gone on since September 1st. And then internally, we're completing our National Transit Database report. It's the annual report that we put in every metric you can imagine. That in turn leads to the formula funding that we get from the federal government. We've begun work on our FY22 budget. Lastly, we are working on an update to our transit asset management plan, which gets to some pieces that Nick will be talking about later today in terms of performance measures and safety targets. So with that, I've completed my Lynx update. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Miles. Okay, any questions for Mr. O'Keefe? Or for Mr. Seosi, or even for Kenya?
There are no hands, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good. Thanks, everybody. Now we have 4 items, I understand, for review and or discussion today. Now, our first item is a review of the minutes from our December 3rd meeting, which are at tab 1 in your agenda packets. Now, I hope you all have had a chance to read them. So given that, are there any corrections or revisions that need to be made to the staff, brought to the staff's attention? Hearing none. We would, as a reminder, those that will be brought back for formal approval at a future in-person meeting. Okay, now our next item in tab 2 of your agenda packet is the Fdot amendment to fiscal year 2020, 2021 through 2024 and 2025 TIP, found again at tab 2. Now, Mr. Caskey will present the information. Please hold your questions until the presentation is finished. Keith, if you would go ahead.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. This amendment includes increasing the funding for the interchange improvement at I-4 and Sand Lake Road. And this is mainly due to changing the design of the project to add resurfacing the section of I-4 between the ultimate and beyond the ultimate segments. Also, the design of a new loop ramp bridge over I-4 was changed from concrete to steel, which added to the cost. And then there's maintenance work on a retaining wall that was added, among other things. And this is described in more detail in the letter from Fdot that you all have in your agenda package. So that's what I have to present this morning. And at this point, I'll open up for see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Keith. Anybody have any questions or comments for Keith?
I'll give it a second, Mr. Chairman, just to see if any hands go up. And there are not any.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Keith. Now, our third item is the annual review of the Fdot performance measures and the Lynx transit asset management targets. Now, Nick Lepp from MetroPlan Orlando will present the information. And again, please hold your questions on this action item until the presentation is finished. Nick, you're on, bud.
Good morning. Yes, we are here today to present annually our performance measure targets as we go into our performance-based planning prioritization process. Next slide, please. So what came out in MAP 21, and which also is included in current FAST Act, which is our federal legislation, was performance management and target development. Within that, we were now have to include a data-driven performance management approach to our prioritization process to show significant assessment towards the progress that we're trying to achieve, especially in terms of safety, travel time reliability, and as Miles mentioned, some transit asset management and safety and other targets. Next slide, please. There are two methods that we could take. We could support our regional partners in DOT in their target setting and look towards those as we prioritize those federal funds, or we could set our own targets. In that case, we would have to go out and collect our own data and do a little bit more. But we have been good partners with with Fdot and Lynx over the past couple of years and supported their targets as we've been developing our prioritized project list. Next slide, please. So we have 6 targets. Before I presented 5, but there was a new one this year, which is transit safety, which I'll get to last. But the first performance measure is safety, overall safety, where we're looking at the number of fatalities, the rate of those fatalities, serious injuries, and also the injuries and fatalities on motorized and non-motorized injuries. Next slide, please. MetroPlan in the past has adopted a Vision Zero approach to this, which means we want 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries on our system. This is also supported by the Department of Transportation and the City of Orlando's Vision Zero program. So we're looking to continue to support that as a Vision Zero target for this next year. Next slide, please. Also, we support the department's efforts in state of good repair. The department has done a great job of allocating a certain amount of funds to make sure that our pavement and our bridges are in great condition in the state. In fact, we're very well known across the nation for that. So we continue to support the department's efforts and their targets to maintain that pavement in good condition, as well as those bridges in good condition over the prioritization process. Next slide, please. Travel time reliability. This is our congestion measure. Instead of measuring how long a congested segment may be, we're looking at the reliability of that congestion. So is that segment reliably congested? Meaning, is you going to get the same congestion during the 4 to 6 p.m. period? Then it is reliable. Not much we can do about the congestion, though we're still attempting to solve some of that. But at this point, we're trying to solve some of that non-reoccurring congestion where you're not expected that trip to take 30 minutes when it usually only takes you 15. So we're going to support those targets again this year, or we're looking to support those targets again this year, having our interstate at 70% reliable and our non-interstate at 50%. Next slide, please. This is where Miles was talking about the transit asset management, where MetroPlan allocates some of our TMA funds that we get as a large urbanized area to Lynx to make sure that they have enough funding to maintain their rolling stock, equipment, and facilities, which are all needed to support the Lynx's system running today. So we make sure that there's enough to keep the system running as we're also trying to plan and vision for that future of the public transportation system. And we work with Lynx on those targets to make sure they can achieve them. Next slide, please. And then this is the new one. This is the public transit safety target. A little bit different than our safety target that I talked about in PM1, because transit is treated a little differently. Though they still have a Vision Zero target for fatalities, which supports everything else we've been doing in the region. But when it comes to injuries, they calculate their injuries or have to report their injuries different than we do, say on the roadway. A slip and fall on a bus or at a bus stop would be considered an injury in their reporting system. So they established a target that was a little bit more realistic to achieve than a zero injury target, which is a 2.48, which is consistent to their historical averages that they've been seeing over the past few years. So we're looking to support Lynx's targets on transit safety also. And those are our 6 targets that we're looking to reconfirm support for as we move into the prioritization process. And I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thanks, Nick. Anybody, any discussion or questions for Nick?
Mr. Chairman, I'm scanning for hands and I don't see any at this time.
Nick, even though we're not asking questions, we are paying attention. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Our 4th item on the agenda for today is the 2021 Board Legislative Priorities in tab 4 of your packet. Now, Ms. Virginia will present the information, and please hold your comments and questions on this action item until the presentation is finished. Ms. Virginia, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, at tab 4, you will find a copy of the draft legislative priorities and positions that have been brought forward from a meeting with the MetroPlan Orlando's Executive Committee on January 6th. MetroPlan Orlando typically approves and adopts a set of priorities each year. If you'll go to the next slide, please. And the priorities fall basically into 2 broad categories: safety and funding. And then we use 3 approaches in order to get these through each year. And those approaches, in the spirit of the Super Bowl that is this weekend, I'll use a sports analogy to explain how we move these through. Our top priorities are those priorities that we are actively in the game, on the field, moving the ball, working hard to get touchdowns or win. And those items that are listed under the support category are those that we stand on the sideline and we cheer. We're waiting for someone else who may have taken the lead, and if they require our support and want us to get into the game, then we have acknowledged that we are in support and are willing to help them win, because if they win, we win. And lastly are those items that we monitor. And the items that we monitor are those that kind of sometimes they come back around or they move very, very quickly and cause us to come into a huddle, meet with our MetroPlan Orlando board members, get further direction on how they want us to proceed. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. Next slide, please. So being proposed as our top priorities, many of these you will see are items that have been on the priority list in previous years. And we don't take them off of the list just because there's no movement in them. There may have been disruptors. Something may have happened in Tallahassee where they did not get as much traction or attention. Hurricanes, and of course the tragic shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School also were just examples of those type things that would cause the legislature, of course, how they're going to respond to COVID. Those type things may cause them to not pay as much attention to transportation. And so we don't peel those items off of our list. We keep them on. We keep talking about them until the time is right. So this year, we are looking for funding to expand the Best Foot Forward for Pedestrian Safety program in Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties. We have filed a request for an appropriation for a match that matches the MetroPlan Orlando funding that is already given to this organization of $100,000 each year in an effort, again, to expand the program in our service area. And secondly, a top priority is that we're looking for changes in the law to add cyclists to the move over law. There is some legislation that has already been filed, and we are hopeful in lending our support to get that law passed. The items that we support, which are listed here, are mostly those that allow for flexibility in funding or opportunities that we already have on the books, but we're looking for some flexibility in those, such as the local option discretionary sales taxes and the Charter County Regional Surtax that would allow us to use those in a different way for transit. Some have restrictions, as you know, that would only allow them to be used for capital. We would like to see some flexibility in those where we would be able to use them for operations. And of course, we always position ourselves in a posture of protecting the State Transportation Trust Fund and the Transportation Disadvantaged Trust Fund. Next slide, please. And those are items that are continuing those that we support. Again, these are items that are already in existence, and we're looking for flexibility. For example, the use of CIS funds to be used on non-CIS facilities is an opportunity to possibly make some adjustments to roadways that lead into CIS facilities. So they may be adjacent to or feed into CIS facilities. And so we're looking for flexibility to be able to do some construction that would increase those capacities. Restoring the TRIP or Transportation Regional Incentive Program to a more predictable level. This is an item that's being advanced by the MPOAC out of Tallahassee, and they are looking at about $250 million a year. As you know, the TRIP funds come from those construction and dock stamps. So as construction increases and revenues increase, they're looking for an opportunity to return that to a more predictable level. Right now, it is not as predictable. And then, as you know, any advancements in innovative transportation mobility solutions using intelligent transportation, electronic vehicles, any TSMO, Transportation Systems Management and Operations also. We're leading in that area, and we want to continue to. Next slide. This next one is a new one that we are adding to our list, and on your draft, you see this under an item to support any legislation or changes to the law that allows us to continue to have the option of having virtual meetings. We have experienced our highest participation in terms of the public attending our meetings and webinars and those meetings that we had to have that led to the adoption of our 2045 plan. We saw more participation from the public and our members, for that matter. And so, again, this item is being advanced by the MPOAC, and they are seeking to have the option for local governments to hold virtual meetings. And the caveat to the one that they are pursuing is that it be during declared states of emergency and 90 days beyond. So that is what they are pursuing, and we are in support of that. The three items that you see here that we are monitoring, any legislation that further regulates distracted driving, any legislation that repeals or seeks to repeal red light camera legislation, we continue to monitor and seek the direction of the MetroPlan Orlando Board. There are already bills that are filed. House Bill 6009 seeks to further regulate distracted driving or driving with electronic devices, seeking to further regulate that. And then House Bill 91, filed by Representative Sabatini, seeks to repeal the red light camera legislation. The MetroPlan Orlando Board, with regard to those two, have previously taken positions of opposition. Coming out of the Executive Committee meeting, however, Chair Janer and the Executive Committee members have requested that staff bring these items back to the MetroPlan Orlando Board for a more deliberative conversation with them. Things change, positions change, but they want to be able to either take the previous position, have a discussion that may result in supporting or even taking no position. So they will have a discussion at the board meeting next week. And then the legislation that mandates any mid-block crossings, this was a fast-moving item that came on last year, and the board will again take an opportunity to discuss that. We have not seen anything that has been filed that I know of to date, but again, because the board had taken a position, we all, again, believe that safety is our number one priority. But when it comes to things like this that are disruptive in terms of your local government budgets that come in terms of a unfunded mandate, we need to take a close look at how that affects our communities. Lastly, this item that you see here as an executive agency item, about halfway down on your support items that is in your agenda, there is an item having to do with recognizing federal MPO funds be treated as state funds. This is an item, again, that is being advanced by the MPOAC, which is the Florida Metropolitan Planning Organization Advisory Council. But this it's not affected by law at this stage, so we are recommending an approach where we take an executive agency action item approach. We will meet our lobbying team, along with the lobbying team with other metropolitan planning organizations around the state, would meet with the Department of Financial Services and Fdot in an effort to resolve this before it reaches the level of having the legislature to get involved in this. So we're proposing that be the action step to be able to resolve it as an executive agency action item. And lastly, Mr. Chairman and members, we will be asking the executive committee or the board's authority for the executive committee of the MetroPlan Orlando Board to expand their role. The session starts March 2nd, ends April 30th. And so if there are other fast-moving items that may come before us, that decisions have to be made before the next MetroPlan Orlando board meeting, we are requesting that the executive committee be that go-to for that huddle for us that I mentioned earlier. We would discuss those items with them and get direction. And so with that, I will pause for questions. Next slide there. We'll pause for questions if there are any, or if there are any other items that you all have that you would like for me to take to the MetroPlan board.
There's a lot of meat on that bone, everybody. We probably ought to have a few questions here.
I do see a hand by Commissioner Commissioner Ramos.
When would meeting the lobby team and where is your thoughts on the date and place?
Once the MetroPlan Orlando board approves our request, that is when we would be able to make the advancements towards that. Once the board adopts these priorities and our strategy, then we would seek to set that meeting with our lobbying team, and those, if any of you are interested in attending, we can make that information available to you. But it would likely be a Zoom meeting or a meeting in Tallahassee.
Thank you. I would be interested.
Yeah, Sal, the board will meet what day was it, Virginia, next week?
The board meeting is next Wednesday, the 10th.
Right. So a lot will be discussed there, Sal. Any other questions?
Thank you.
There's a lot going on, and
Don't see any hands.
yeah, whenever the legislature's in session, there's always the fear of good. I'm sorry, the promise of good and the fear of not so good. Did I say that? Okay. All right. Let's moving forward. Let's see. We have a presentation on FDOT's new tentative 5-year work program. This is for fiscal year 2021, 22, and 2025 through 2026. This presentation will be made by Ms. Catherine Alexander and FDOT District 5 projects. After her presentation, Mr. Seose Fine will present the Florida Turnpike Enterprise projects. Ms. Catherine, you're on.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Go ahead and share my screen here. You should be able to see the presentation now. All right, so what I'm going to present is the tentative 5-year work program for fiscal years 22 through 26. And what our work program represents are the transportation needs in the upcoming 5 years for public transit, seaport, airport, and rail projects, as well as transportation planning, transportation systems management operations, engineering, design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction activities. Now, projects within these areas are identified through priorities of the department, as well as coordination with our MPOs, TPOs, and the priorities of our local partners and agencies. The fiscal year, which is how we manage our projects in the work program, run from July 1st through June 30th. Now, the different types of projects that are included in our work program are listed here. You'll find safety and security projects, as well as system and preservation and maintenance, pedestrian and bicycle improvements, multimodal enhancements, and operational capacity improvements. When it comes to our strategic intermodal systems projects, those are set by the priorities identified by the MPO, TPOs, and FDOT. This gives you a representation of how we develop the work program. Currently, right now, we're working on our adopted, which is fiscal years 21 through 25. And that first year is considered the lockdown. That is set by budgetary purposes. So any changes to that year may require administrative authorization or approval from Tallahassee. But in the process of developing our tentative 5-year plan, what we do is we're constantly developing a new 5th year and adjusting the programming for the remaining years 2 to 4. Once that 5th year is developed, the years slide to the left, we now have a 5-year plan where that 2nd year now becomes our upcoming lockdown. And this is our tentative work program, which I'll be presenting some of the priority projects and highlights today. They represent fiscal years 22 through 26. So essentially our program is tentative until July 1st when it is adopted. On July 1st, we then have the transportation needs for each of the years represented here. A lot of work goes into developing the tentative plan, but it is still subject to change. Some of the key activities that we go through a yearly cycle of updating our plan all kick off on July 1st when the work program development cycle begins. That is also when we receive the priority list from our partners. We go through the process of compiling all the information, all the project needs, trying to meet all the programs in the target areas so we can develop a balanced plan. One key event that happens every year is the Revenue Estimating Conference, and at that is the location where the state will actually run the numbers and give us the updated revenues and allocations that are going to be able to support the needs identified at the district. This year there was a revenue conference that was held in August, and then another one in December that was for transportation revenue. So through the summer and into the fall, we will go ahead and compile all the information, and then we start to put together the plan. We try to meet the programs in the target areas as well as any available resources. Unfortunately, this year we were faced with the reality that the resource revenues and allocations were not going to be as high as expected. So that was a challenge. Another challenge that we had this year as we were developing our tentative cycle is that it pushed us up right up against our snapshot date, which was December 18th. That is the information that was used for our public hearing that was held the second week of January. And then there was a public hearing comment deadline for comments to the public record, and that was due on January 29th. Some upcoming activities that we have so we can go ahead and work towards adopting this tentative work program 5-year plan. February 12th is the deadline for the MPO written objections. The Florida Transportation Commission will hold a public hearing and a workshop in the spring, early spring coming up. They'll also review the statewide tentative work program. Then the tentative work program is submitted to central office, will submit our tentative work program to the executive office of the governor before legislature begins. So legislation we have beginning March 2nd and it runs until April 30th. Ultimately, once we have gone through the proper review and approval of the tentative work program, it becomes adopted on July 1st, and we will have our new program for fiscal years 22 to 26. I mentioned that we had some shortfalls due to the projections that were in the revenue decreases that we received from the estimating conference. What we're seeing is that we still have reduced revenue due to the growth of fuel efficiency in vehicles. There's less people traveling, so there's less gas consumption. There's also reduced revenue from the State Transportation Trust Fund and other transportation taxes, which is impacting our work program. As well as right-of-way costs have increased at an average of about 7.1% statewide. So our projects are costing a little more money if they include right-of-way. And as we all know, we've had economic impacts from the pandemic. That's significant to Central Florida, being a huge tourism location and all of the attractions that we have in the area. We also have the increase in remote or teleworking, which means less people are driving. There's also people exploring alternate modes of travel. And then the impacts to tourism. So there's less surcharges due to the less people traveling to the area in terms of renting hotels and vehicles and all of that. So there was a shortfall across the state, a 1.4 billion plus. For the district, we faced a $100 million shortfall as we were coming into developing of our tentative 5-year plan. The greatest amount of the shortfall was in the current year at $80 million. So what we wanted to do is reduce the impact of projects and absorb some of those shortfalls through reductions that we were doing in our district in terms of our support contracts. This would be our district-wide and our general engineering consulting contracts and so forth. If we had to impact projects, we wanted to make sure that what we would do is reduce the amount of the impact. So defer maybe a year or two, or spread the funding so we can balance the plan. But we still want to make sure that we held commitments to any existing contracts, as well as any debt service, any safety and maintenance projects that we have planned. What you see here is the breakdown for the 3 counties in the MetroPlan jurisdiction, this Orange, Osceola, and Seminole. And you can see this broken down per year across the counties. It's a little bit over $446 million for Orange, a little bit over $265 million for Osceola, and a little over $208 for Seminole County. In terms of the projects where the funding is being allocated, you'll see here we have safety, capacity, preservation, multimodal operations, a bike ped, and then miscellaneous. That could be any kind of isolated improvements, maybe drainage, anything that would be needed on the spot. The breakdown for that for the 5-year for each of the counties is also shown here, and you can see the totals all the way to the right for each one of these categories. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the projects. We have several that are priority projects that we have programmed allocated in the upcoming 5 years. And we'll start off with Orange County. We have 242484-8 I-4 capacity, a priority number 2. Right away is programmed. Another I-4 capacity project, another priority as well. We have design and right-of-way programmed in fiscal years 22 through 23, and this is from the Beachline Expressway to Kirkland Road. Next, we have the State Road Colonial Drive from Old Cheney Highway to Chulota Road. This is on the east side of Orange County. We have widening. Construction on this has been programmed fiscal years 24 with CEI in 24 and 25. An extension of the State Road 50 project, also widening. This one begins in Chuluota and extends over the State Road 520. Construction for this is programmed for 25. Next, we have some other localized improvement projects. What you see here is 446485-1. This is a miscellaneous, it's an MPO Complete Streets Priority 3 project. The sign on this will begin in 23 with construction programmed in fiscal year 26. Next, we have Orange County traffic signal cabinets upgrades at various locations throughout the county. This is designed to begin in 22 and construction in 25. We have another Orange County project. This is for UPS or interruptible power supply expansion, phase 1. It's a traffic ops improvement, as you can see here. The design on this is fiscal year 22 with construction in 24. Next, we have an arterial traffic management project. This is for design, construction, operations, and CEI all in fiscal years 22. Next, we have a bike path trail project. This is beginning in fiscal year 22. This is for 446487-1, Sandsburg Trail, Keller Road to Maitland Avenue. It's designed in 22 with construction in CEI in 24. Next, 448756-1. This is also a bike path and trail project. Construction for this is programmed in fiscal year 25, and this will be from Old Winter Garden Road to Raleigh Street. Another bike path trail project. This is the Little Econ Trail Phase 3 from Baldwin Park Street to Richard Carty Parkway. Right now we have design program for 22, right away in 24 with construction in 26. Moving on to Osceola County. First project that we see here, that's a capacity improvement at State Road 535 from US 192 to north of 536, excuse me. Design for this is programmed for fiscal year 26. Another capacity improvement project, 437200-1. This is at US 1792. And this is going from County Road 54 to west of Ponciana Boulevard. Design for this is programmed in fiscal year 26. And then we have an interim improvement. This is the State Road 600 US 1792 from Pleasant Hill to Portage Street. The right of way for this is being programmed, from 22 to 26. Corridor improvements, this is 437932-1 at Central Avenue from Dakin Avenue and Church Street to Donegan Avenue. This is design, has been programmed for fiscal year 25. All right, and then we have another arterial traffic management phase 6. This is from Boggy Creek, for Boggy Creek Road from Simpson Road to Narcoossee Road. This has a program for construction in 25. Another ITS project, we have 448776-1. This is Osceola Parkway from Dyer Boulevard to the Florida's Turnpike, designed in 24. Another traffic signals project. This is for design in 23, construction in 25 for Buenaventura Boulevard. Couple of sidewalk projects. We have the Bella Lago Academy sidewalk. This is part of the Safe Routes to School, construction in 22. Another Safe Routes to School sidewalk project, this one for Deerwood Elementary School, construction in 22. And then a few in Seminole, starting again with capacity. We have for I-4, will begin at 1 mile east of State Road 434 to State Road 15. This is designed in 25 and right away from 22 to 26. And a complete street priority project. This is for East Church Avenue. Construction has been programmed fiscal year 25. Another complete streets project for Orange Boulevard in Seminole County. Construction for this project has been programmed in 26. In addition to that, we have Warren Avenue. This is from State Road 434 to Millway Street, designed in 25. Bike path trail project, also a priority. This has construction programmed in fiscal year 25. Spring Lake Trail, 64-1. There's construction in 25 as well. And that completes the project highlights priorities that we have programmed. I mentioned that we had to consider some deferrals. You see here 2 deferrals that we had in Orange County. The first one, the deferral was the construction phase was deferred from fiscal year 23 to 26. There were some adjustments to the Suntrail funding that were being utilized on that project. And then we had the drainage improvement project on, this would be on East Colonial and McGuire Boulevard. And that was deferred from 22 to 23. That was also done to allow some time to analyze some of the drainage concerns. For Seminole County, we deferred for 239422-1. This was construction deferred for fiscal years 22 to 23, and this was due to balance the work program. There were no deferrals for Osceola County. And with that, I'll go ahead and open up for any questions. That concludes my presentation.
Sorry, do we have any questions for Ms. Alexander?
I'm scanning for hands, and I don't see any at the current time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Fine, you want to present your program?
Yes, sir. So good morning, committee members. Again, my name is Siasi Fine, and I'm here to highlight the Turnpike's tentative work program for fiscal years 2022 to fiscal year 2026. Next slide, please. For Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties, we have about $830 million in programmed improvements for fiscal years 2022 to fiscal years 2026. Next slide, please. For the MetroPlan Orlando area, there's about 32 miles of resurfacing projects programmed for the next 5 years. Roads that will see resurfacings include the Turnpike Mainline with 2 segments in Osceola County, the Western Beltway with a segment in Orange County and a segment in Osceola County, and the Seminole Expressway. Next slide, please. For Osceola County, there are 4 projects in the tentative work program, and they are Project 443879-1, Canoe Creek Service Plaza parking improvements. And this project expands car and truck parking at the Canoe Creek Service Plaza.
Yeah.
This concept will add northbound and southbound passenger car spaces, trucking park spaces, and tandem truck parking spaces. The number of additional parking spaces and other details will be confirmed during the design phase of the project. Construction for this project is programmed for fiscal year 2022, with the majority of the funds in 2026. The next project is Project 441224-2 and -4, which widens the Turnpike Mainline from Kissimmee Park Road to US 192 with a new full interchange at Nolte Road, replacing the existing partial interchange at Kissimmee Park Road. This project will increase the number of travel lanes from 4 to 8 with a closed median and provide operational and safety improvements. Work includes the removal of the existing Kissimmee Park Road partial interchange and the construction of a new full access diverging diamond interchange at Nolte Road to replace it. So design build for this project is programmed for fiscal year 2024. And the funds that you see in fiscal year 2022 in the work program, those are more administrative than anything. So the next project is Project 436194-1, which widens the Turnpike Mainline from Parton Settlement Road to Osceola Parkway. And the number of travel lanes will increase from 4 to 8 in this project. And construction is programmed for fiscal year 2022. And the final project for Osceola County is Project 444329-1, which is interchange improvements on the Western Beltway at I-4. This project adds lanes to the existing ramps at the interchange of the Western Beltway at I-4, and also adds auxiliary lanes along I-4 from County Road 532 to the Western Beltway. The project goes with Project 443958-1, which is a widening project on I-4 from the Polk Osceola County line to west of the Southern Connector extension. Both projects are being managed by Fdot District 5 and are partially funded by the Turnpike. So construction for this project is programmed for fiscal year 2022. Next slide, please. For Orange County, there is one major project in the tentative work program, and it is project 433663-1, which constructs a new interchange on the Turnpike Mainline at Sand Lake Road. So this interchange will be a full interchange, and work includes the reconstruction of the Sand Lake Road bridges spanning over the Turnpike Mainline, turn lane improvements at the Sand Lake Road and President's Drive intersection, and new sidewalks along both sides of the Sand Lake Road and John Young Parkway to President's Drive. Tolls will be collected on both the southbound off-ramp and northbound on-ramp that with a feature called AET, or all electronic tolling. And construction for this project is programmed for fiscal year 2023. Next slide, please. For Seminole County, there is also one major project in the tentative work program, and it is project 417545-1, which widens the Seminole Expressway from Aloma Avenue to State Road 434. And the travel lanes will increase from 4 to 8, and work includes pavement widening, milling and resurfacing, operational improvements, noise walls, and interchange improvements at Aloma Avenue, Red Bug Lake Road, and State Road 434. Design build is programmed for fiscal year 2024. And with that, that is the end of my presentation. If there are any questions or concerns, I'm happy to take them now.
All right, anybody have any questions for Mr. Fine?
Hand by Councilmember Trace.
Keith,
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Virginia. Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if we could get those maps that were up. I didn't see them as part of my agenda packet. And I thought DOT had maps in the past as well that showed all the projects kind of by county in one sheet.
Yes, will get copies of the presentation to you after the meeting, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I had one question for the Turnpike. Are any of those mainline improvements going to be toll within a toll, or are they all just the same toll that's there now?
I believe they're just normal toll.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other thoughts?
I don't see any additional hands, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Ms. Virginia, let's move on. Our next presentation is an update on the State Road 414 Pdna Study. Ms. Sansaray Dalton is here to present. Ms. Dalton, you have the floor.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, the team is here representing the the Central Florida Expressway Authority. And with your indulgence, if you will please acknowledge Mr. Will Hawthorne, and he will introduce the team.
Mr. Hawthorne, you're on.
Good morning, Chairman McDonald. Thank you for having me and members of the committee. My name is Will Hawthorne. I'm the Director of Engineering for the Central Florida Expressway Authority. I serve as the CFX Project Manager for State Route 414 Expressway Extension that's being presented to you today. The project is currently in the project development and environment study phase, or otherwise known as the Pdna stage. And without further ado, I'm happy to introduce Sunsaray Dalton, who is our consultant project manager, who will be providing the update. Sunsaray.
Good morning. I would like to thank Mr. Chairman and committee members for the opportunity to present to you this project status update on the State Road 414 Expressway Extension Pdna study. I will provide you a project overview of the study, and the agenda is shown on the next slide, which includes the project background, study information, recent public involvement opportunities and upcoming opportunities, the overall Pdna study schedule, and the next steps in the Pdna study process. Next slide, please. Within CFX's project development process shown here, the project is currently in the Pdna study phase, as Will mentioned. At the conclusion of the Pdna study phase, after public input is received on the alternatives and the recommended alternative, and based on CFX board approval, the next phase would be design. This Pdna study phase will consider the environmental effects during the alternatives evaluation process and provide opportunities for public and stakeholder input during the stages of the project as the alternatives are being considered. Next slide, please. The purpose of this Pdna study is to determine if a limited access facility between US 441 and State Road 434 is viable and cost feasible, and to evaluate alternatives that address the purpose and need for the study. Next slide, please. Prior to this Pdna study, CFX conducted a planning study to evaluate the feasibility of extending the existing State Road 414 John Land Apopka Expressway from its current terminus at US 441 to State Road 434. The feasibility study was documented in the State Road 414 Reversible Express Lane Schematic Report in 2019, and it identified potential alternatives, including a tolled directional express lanes within the median of State Road 414 between US 441 and State Road 434. And that alternative was recommended for further study during this Pdna phase. The project was previously documented in local transportation plans shown on this slide, including the CFX 2040 master plan. Since the feasibility study was completed in 2019, the project has been updated and included in the CFX 5-year work plan for fiscal year 2021 to 2025, which was approved in June of 2020, and the MetroPlan Orlando 2021 to 2025 Transportation Improvement Program. Local planning consistency on any proposed improvements will be coordinated during this Pdna study. Next slide, please. The purpose and need for the project are to provide the needed capacity on State Road 414, improve system connectivity between State Road 429 and I-4 to meet future traffic needs, enhance safety within the project corridor, and support multimodal opportunities while avoiding and minimizing impacts to the surrounding environment. Next slide, please. Preliminary traffic studies show that the existing traffic along Mainline Boulevard is expected to increase by 20% through the design year 2045 in the no-build condition. Next slide, please. Significant backups already occur during both the AM eastbound and PM westbound peak periods. During peak travel times, drivers can spend nearly half an hour traveling through the project corridor, and the level of service at the intersections within the study corridor is unsatisfactory. As you see here, as the traffic increases in the future, increased delay and congestion is expected along Mainline Boulevard. This project would provide the needed capacity and uninterrupted regional travel on the State Road 414 Expressway to support the future population and growth throughout the study area. Next slide, please. This 15-month study coordinated with the FDOT will analyze alternatives to provide a limited access elevated State Road 414 Expressway extension within the median of the existing Mainline Boulevard while maintaining the existing Mainline Boulevard local access lanes for local traffic, intersection improvements on Mainline Boulevard, bridge modifications at Lake Bosse and Little Wekiva River, stormwater management facilities, pedestrian bicycle needs, and access management modifications. Any potential effects to social, cultural, natural, and physical environment resources will be considered during the Pdna study and avoided and minimized to the extent feasible. Next slide, please. The Pdna study will analyze and document the potential effects to all the social, natural, cultural, and physical environmental resources to the environmental resources that are shown here on this slide. Next slide, please. Based on the analysis completed so far during the study, the project is anticipated to result in enhanced mobility for all users, improved regional connectivity, and no overall economic benefit. The project is also expected to have no right-of-way needs or potential relocations. Additionally, there is no involvement with the key environmental features shown here, such as outstanding Florida waters or aquatic preserves. Next slide, please. So the existing typical section for Maitland Boulevard is shown here. It is a 4-lane divided urban principal arterial. The existing typical section is approximately centered within the existing right-of-way of 118 feet. The existing typical section consists of 4 11-foot wide travel lanes that are 2 lanes in each direction, 4-foot wide inside and outside shoulders, and a 46-foot wide median. Next slide, please. Multiple typical section options have been considered during these initial stages of alternatives development as part of the Pdna study. The alternatives considered include the no-build alternative, which involves making no modifications to the existing roadway, widening the existing roadway with at-grade widening alternatives, as well as other options. The typical sections were evaluated based on their ability to meet the purpose and need for the project and provide enhanced capacity and improved traffic operations on State Road 414. Detailed traffic studies are ongoing to analyze these alternatives. As a result of the preliminary analysis, an elevated 4-lane expressway shown here within the existing median of State Road 414 is being considered and evaluated in more detail because the preliminary results show that it addresses the future traffic operations better than the other alternatives and avoids right-of-way impacts. In the typical section that you see here, 2 lanes on Maitland Boulevard would be provided in each direction at grade for local access. Overall, this alternative is expected to have no right-of-way impacts. The no-build alternative and other project alternatives are still being evaluated as part of the Pdna study. And at the public workshop, which is scheduled for February 10th, public input will be received on the alternatives considered. This feasible alternative that you see that's being further evaluated includes buffered bike lanes on Maitland Boulevard and sidewalks along both sides of Maitland Boulevard. These enhancements are expected to enhance safety for pedestrians and support future multimodal opportunities. Next slide, please. The Seminole Wekiva Trail is a multi-use trail adjacent to the north side of the study corridor just west of Bear Lake Road. The Florida East Coast to Coast Trail is planned to connect to the Seminole Wekiva Trail along US 441, and it is currently under design. This Pdna study is accommodating those plan improvements as well as the future Pine Hills Trail, which is co-located along US 441. Pedestrian and bicycle enhancements to Maitland Boulevard throughout the study corridor, including trail connectivity from the Seminole Wekiva Trail to Lake Lotus Park, are being evaluated during the Pdna study. Next slide, please. The existing suburban corridor is surrounded by multiple residential developments as shown here in yellow and orange. There is an industrial zone property located on the western end of the study area and commercial property area at the eastern end. Next slide, please. Noise sensitive sites, including residential areas and major subdivisions, occur within 500 feet of the study corridor and Lake Lotus Park. There are existing Fdot noise barriers, noise walls between Maitland Boulevard and most of the residential areas. However, a noise study report will be performed as part of the Pdna study to evaluate the noise effects and feasible and reasonable noise mitigation, including increased noise wall heights. This report will be available for review prior to the public hearing. Next slide, please. Forested and non-forested wetlands also occur in the study area, primarily associated with the lakes and Lake Lotus Park. Lake Bosse and Lake Lotus within the study corridor are hydrologically contiguous with the Little Wekiva Canal, which crosses under State Road 414. A natural resources evaluation report will be prepared for this study. Next slide, please. Other environmental considerations include aesthetic enhancements and the use of all electronic tolling standards for the State Road 414 elevated expressway extension. Based on preliminary evaluations, no significant archaeological or historical resources have been identified within the study area. A detailed review of potential contamination sites is being performed and will be documented in a contamination screening evaluation report. Over 17 utility agencies and owners have also been identified, and a utility assessment package will be prepared during the study. Next slide, please. The Pdna study began in March of 2020, last year. We are currently drafting Pdna documents and continuing alternatives analysis of the study alternatives. And the study will continue to refine the proposed alternatives based on public and stakeholder input. Public and stakeholder coordination are integral parts of this study, and we've provided multiple opportunities for participation during the Pdna study in the form of a project advisory group, an environmental advisory group, environmental stewardship committee with CFX, public workshops, and a future public hearing, as well as various agency coordination meetings that will occur. Our overall goal of the public involvement plan is to help ensure that the study reflects the values and needs of the surrounding community that it is designed to benefit. Next slide, please. During the Pdna study, we've scheduled technical meetings with environmental agencies and stakeholders to provide information on environmental resources and key considerations. Stakeholder meetings have included the Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting and the advisory groups I mentioned, which consists of local governmental agencies and environmental resource agencies and organizations. These meetings were conducted to provide input for further analysis during the Pdna study. And some of the key inputs that we received shown here, such as wetlands and habitats associated with Lake Bosse and Lake Lotus, trail connectivity considerations, noise and aesthetic impacts, and additional coordination efforts are being coordinated as we proceed throughout the Pdna study. Next slide, please. The overall Pdna study schedule is shown here. The study is anticipated to complete in summer of 2021 after public input is received at this upcoming alternatives public workshop and a public hearing, which is anticipated in late May or June of this year. These dates are subject to change, and CFX will update MetroPlan on key informational items as the study progresses and provide an update when the public hearing is scheduled. Next slide, please. We've included in the presentation for your agenda package the study website, so you have information to stay informed regarding project updates or receive study information. That webpage is available on CFX website under Pdna Studies. Next slide, please. And we provided additional contact information for the project, including Kathy Putman, CFX's Public Involvement Coordinator, and key project information. That concludes the presentation, and we appreciate the opportunity to present to you, and we are available, Will and I, for any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, guys. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Hawthorne or Ms. Dalton?
Mr. Chairman, I do not see any hands as of yet, but I will let you all know that the project team provided an updated fact sheet for the project that was not able to make it into your agenda. So we will email that out along with the other requested information following the meeting.
That's great, Mr. Virginia. If you'd make sure I get a copy of that. On behalf of all the folks in Maitland, none of which lies within this project study area, this is so long overdue, and I just want to say that Will and Ms. Dalton, you are my forever heroes.
Well, thank you, Mayor.
I have to drive this stretch often, and you understated the difficulty.
We are continuing to work through the study, and we are aware of the challenges the corridor brings. So thank you for the kind words, and we'll keep you updated as we progress forward.
Very good. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Our final presentation is a very needed reminder from Ms. Weddington. Go ahead, Ms. Virginia.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I am going to forego the presentation that I give to all of the other committees because you as elected officials and city officials typically have your ethics training, and so this is likely covered there. But we are obligated as an organization to remind you that the Municipal Advisory Committee falls under the Sunshine Law. You are governed by the Sunshine Laws, and that is that, next slide, please, where two or more of you are in a conversation that has any discussions about any topic or project that may come before this board or this committee in the foreseeable future, that conversation is subject to sunshine. We are responsible for posting meeting notices and allowing the public to be notified and accessible to your meetings. Just a quick reminder also, this means that any in-person conversations, phone conversations, emails, text messages, courier pigeons, writing in the sky, all of those written communications are subject to sunshine. And if you have a conflict that you have with any project that is coming forward, that you're obligated to declare a conflict of interest. And of course, those conflicts may include community activities that are outside of this forum. And I'll also remind all of the members of the Municipal Advisory Committee that it won't be this way very long. There's a song that they sing at my church that says, soon and very soon. This side will be over. We will be meeting in person again at some point. But as we are meeting in this virtual environment, I just want to remind you that when your cameras are turned off, it appears as though you are not in the meeting and you do not show up on the different views. And so I just wanted to remind you all that we understand that there are times that you need to turn your cameras off, but if you would please try to keep them on so that the public knows that you are present in the meeting. And so, Mr. Chairman, that is all I have. I do have one additional announcement after your general information items. So if there's any questions for the presentation that I just made, that refresher and a reminder, I'm happy to answer that. Otherwise, I have one additional announcement during member comments.
Do not, Miss Virginia, hold us in suspense. Go ahead and let us know what your one item is.
Well, my one item is that I want to introduce to you all in a different role. You got to know him very, very well over the last few years as he was helping to develop our 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Alex Trauger is here with us in the MAC meeting today, and I want to introduce him in a capacity that's going to become new to you all, as he is going to, effective May, he will be taking over the staff liaison responsibilities for the Municipal Advisory Committee. So while I will still be at MetroPlan Orlando, I will still be close by, I will be transferring those responsibilities to Alex. And so I wanted to make that introduction to you all today. As he's here in a shadowing capacity today, we will work together to have him to become familiar with the what goes into preparing you for your meetings for March. And then you don't have a meeting in April, but beginning with your May meeting, he will be in the driver's seat, if you will. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you would like to just give Alex a couple of words there, or if he's prepared to do that, but I just wanted to...
You know, Alex would already know the words that I would give him. He's charming and smart and all those wonderful things. And since I'm letting my scruffy stuff grow on my face, I'm envious of his beard. So Alex would be terrific. I've, worked with him, and he's been indulgent to let me participate some in the 2045 plan. And I've learned a great deal. So while he may not have quite the, the aromatic charm of Virginia, he's going to be great for us. We'll be happy with having him.
And that's decoded as he's not as pretty as I am, right?
There you go. I was grasping for the politically correct thing to say while I was mumbling. All right. But no, thanks, Alex. Looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, I'll
Knows
leave
his
you all
stuff.
with that hand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And is there anything else we need to address? Meetings of interest. Oh, yeah. The MetroPlan Orlando Board, as we talked about earlier, is going to meet on February 10th, and will be a hybrid meeting with some board members, staff, and members of the public attending in person, and other board members, staff, members of the public, and presenters attending virtually on Zoom. Our next MAC meeting will be March 4th. This is planned as a virtual workshop, sounding a lot like today. We'll be notified by Miss Virginia with Alex's assistance, I'm sure. And that we also, I need to announce that March 4th is going to be the last meeting chaired by this knucklehead. So you guys will have to come up with a more competent knucklehead to chair the MAC. You have all kinds of great candidates, and I've learned everything I know from Charles Lacey. So, which including wearing a tie on a Zoom meeting. So.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for a moment, we will reserve all of the glowing accolades that I'm sure everyone will have to speak to your chairmanship. But I would like to say that Councilmember Keith Trace is currently the vice chair, and consistent with the board's direction in December, the current officers will continue to serve until you are able to meet face-to-face to conduct elections. And absent a chair, the vice chair becomes chair. And in the event that the vice chair is unavailable, the immediate past chair steps into that role. So we do have a process in place until the MAC is able to conduct its elections.
Good. And I appreciate that, Keith. We're looking forward to it. I'm very pleased that the committee is setting their bar a little bit higher next time, so that the chairman will be obviously taller on both in reality and on Zoom. So,
and I would have never agreed to it if I knew you were leaving halfway through.
Thanks, Keith. Any other comments that anyone would like to make at this point? Please raise your hand.
I do not see any hands, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good. That means I got to have another meeting relatively unscathed. That's a success. Okay. Any members of the public wish to comment? Please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll unmute your mic. After you're recognized, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comment to 2 minutes or less. Anybody looking anxious, Miss Virginia?
I do not see any hands.
Oh, there's another blessing. Anybody on the written or phone comments that were submitted before the meeting?
None received, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. At this time, it doesn't appear as though we have any further business. And before Charles kicks me out, we'll adjourn this meeting.